Welcome to Third Eye Music TV.
Yeah.
This is Radio Chronicles Episode 3.
All right.
You ready to dive into some sweet Southern rock history?
Let's do it.
We're about to crank up the volume on the story of Duane Allman and the Allman Brothers Band.
Oh, yeah.
Buckle up, because this ride's going to take us straight to the heart of the Southern sound.
It's more than just a band, though, isn't it?
Oh,
It's like we're tracing the roots of a whole musical movement, the Allman Brothers, with their blend of blues, rock, and jazz.
yeah,
They didn't just appear out of thin air.
right.
They emerged from this incredibly rich and complex musical landscape
Wow.
of the American South in the late 1960s.
Okay, let's unpack this musical landscape.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, it all started with these two brothers,
Yeah.
Duane Allman and Greg Allman,
Uh-huh.
down in Daytona Beach, Florida,
Okay,
soaking up everything they could hear.
right.
Imagine the South during the Civil Rights era,
Yeah.
a time of immense change. And in the middle of it all, you have these two young guys
Yeah.
completely captivated by the music pouring out of their radios.
I bet WLAC out of Nashville played a huge role.
Absolutely.
They were famous for those late-night blues shows.
Oh, yeah.
Spinning legends like Muddy Waters and Jimmy Reed.
And it wasn't just passive listening for the Allman Brothers.
Right.
They were absorbing it all like sponges. It was almost an apprenticeship.
Wow.
Learning their craft by playing in bands as teenagers.
So they started out with a group called the Escorts.
Right?
I think I read that they were playing covers around Daytona Beach,
Mm-hmm.
then hitting the Roadhouse circuit as the Allman Joys.
Exactly.
wow.
And let's not forget about the surf bar at the Ocean Pier.
Oh, yeah.
It was a melting pot of musical styles,
Really?
especially soul music.
Huh.
And the Allman Joes were right there in the thick of it,
Wow.
taking it all in.
It's like they were getting a master class in soul and blues right there on the Daytona Beach boardwalk.
That's right.
But those early attempts to make it in the music industry,
Yeah.
didn't they hit some roadblocks?
They did. Their time in Los Angeles with Liberty Records, when they were known as the Hourglass, was particularly frustrating for Duane.
I see.
They wanted him to play a more polished, pop-oriented sound, but he had this burning vision for something different.
Something raw, more improvisational.
Exactly.
I mean, you hear that in everything the Allman Brothers Band did later on.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
Right.
How did Duane break free from those commercial constraints?
That's where the story takes a fascinating turn.
Okay.
Duane's journey led him to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, a place that would become legendary for its soulful sound and influence on American music.
Muscle Shoals,
Yeah,
a musical mecca.
it really is.
What was it about that place that sparked such a significant shift in Duane's playing?
It wasn't just the place.
Right.
It was the people and the unique musical culture. He encountered a different approach to recording there,
Okay.
a raw, more improvisational style
Yeah.
that truly resonated with him.
Wow.
And it was in Muscle Shoals that Duane truly discovered slide guitar.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Duane Allman, the slide guitar legend,
You know, right?
didn't even pick up a slide until Muscle Shoals?
That's right.
Really?
The story goes that he was blown away by Jesse Ed Davis's slide guitar work on Taj Mahal's debut album
Oh, wow.
and was inspired to give it a try.
Wow.
It wasn't just a passing fancy, though.
Huh?
He immersed himself in the technique and quickly developed his own distinctive style.
I can't even imagine what those early jam sessions must have sounded like.
Oh, man.
So he's in Muscle Shoals, finding his voice on slide guitar.
Yeah.
What was the next step in his journey?
Well, Muscle Shoals was like a musical crossroads. He wasn't just absorbing influences.
Right.
He was starting to build a network of musicians who shared his vision,
Uh-huh.
and his session work at Fame Studios really put him on the map.
Fame Studios. Yeah. Another legendary spot in the Muscle Shoals music scene.
Absolutely.
Didn't he work on some pretty significant recordings there?
He did. His electrifying slide guitar on Wilson Pickett's Hey Jude really turned heads. It even caught the attention of the legendary Atlantic Records producer Jerry Wexler,
Really?
who was completely blown away by Duane's talent and raw energy.
Hey Jude, with Duane Allman on slide guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, that just screams Southern soul.
It does.
So how did all of this lead to the formation of the Allman Brothers Band?
Well, Muscle Shoals was a melting pot of talent,
Mm-hmm.
and Duane had a way of attracting like-minded musicians.
Okay.
He was starting to put together the pieces of the band that would become the Allman Brothers.
Right.
It was a real mix of personalities and backgrounds,
Yeah.
all drawn to Duane's vision.
Okay.
You had Dickie Betts, an incredible guitarist,
Right.
who brought a love of country, bluegrass, and jazz to the table.
And Barry Oakley on bass, a true innovator. I've heard stories about him playing the bass like a lead instrument.
Right.
Almost defying categorization.
Oakley was something else.
Yeah.
He could weave in and out of melodies, improvise with this incredible fluidity,
Wow.
and really push the boundaries of what a bass player could do.
And then you had two drummers,
Yeah.
Jamo Johansson and Butch Trucks.
Yeah.
Two drummers.
Two drummers.
That's a pretty unique setup for a rock band back then.
It was unconventional, for sure.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is how they weren't just keeping time.
Right.
They were creating this rhythmic tapestry, this foundation for the band's extended jams and improvisations. Jamo brought his love of jazz and world rhythms,
Great.
while Butch had this driving, powerful style rooted in rock and roll.
So you have these incredibly diverse influences.
I know, it's crazy.
Blues, rock, jazz, country soul,
Yeah,
all coming together in this melting pot of creativity.
right.
And it was all centered around Duane's vision for a band that was built on collaboration and improvisation.
Uh-huh.
How did they even begin to harness all that energy and make it into music?
They needed a place to really dig in and develop their sound.
Okay.
That place became Macon, Georgia, a small southern town steeped in musical history. It provided the perfect environment for them to hone their craft and explore their musical chemistry.
So they had the talent, the vision, the location.
Mm-hmm.
But how did the Allman Brothers Band actually break through?
Right.
How did they go from these intense jam sessions in Macon
Mm-hmm.
to becoming one of the most iconic Southern rock bands of all time?
Well, they hit the road hard, playing hundreds of shows a year. They were relentless, and their live shows became legendary.
Oh, wow.
We're talking extended jams, sometimes stretching a single song for 20 minutes or more, each member feeding off the others, creating this wall of sound that was both exhilarating and hypnotic.
It must have been incredible to be in the audience for one of those shows, pure energy.
Oh, yeah.
But they weren't just playing any old bar.
Yeah,
They were making their way onto the stages of some of the most iconic venues of the era.
absolutely. They played the Fillmore East in New York City, a venue that was almost sacred to rock and roll fans.
Right.
They shared the stage with Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin at the Atlanta Pop Festival. They were right there in the heart of the musical revelation that was sweeping the nation.
So they're building this incredible reputation as a live band, playing these legendary shows.
Yeah.
When did their first album come out?
Their self-titled debut album came out in 1969,
Okay.
but it was their second album, Idlewild South, released in 1970, that really started to gain traction. It showcased their songwriting abilities and their growing confidence as a band.
Idlewild sounds such a classic album.
really?
It's got that raw energy, those extended jams.
Yeah.
But you can also hear the songwriting starting to take shape.
Right.
So they're gaining momentum. Things are really starting to click.
Mm-hmm.
What was the turning point?
Yeah.
When did the Allman Brothers Band truly become a household name?
The turning point was undoubtedly the release of At Fillmore East. In 1971, this live album captured the raw energy and improvisational brilliance of their shows, and is considered a Southern rock masterpiece.
At Fillmore East, a true game changer.
Yeah.
You can almost feel the heat coming off that record.
It's so raw.
It wasn't just a commercial success, though, was it?
Right.
Didn't it also receive critical acclaim?
It did.
Oh, wow.
Critics were raving about it, hailing them as one of the greatest live bands in the world. They were finally getting the recognition they deserved.
Wow.
But tragically, as we know, the band's meteoric rise would be cut short.
Yes. The story takes a heartbreaking turn with Duane Allman's tragic death in a motorcycle accident. In 1971, he was only 24 years old.
It's hard to believe.
It's hard to imagine the grief and shock they must have felt.
Yeah.
To lose someone so talented, so young, so full of life.
Yeah.
It must have felt like the end of an era.
It would have been understandable if they had just given up.
Right.
But instead, the Allman Brothers Band chose to carry on. They channeled their grief, their anger, their love for Duane into their music.
That takes incredible strength and resilience.
It does.
It wasn't just the band members, though, was it?
You're right.
There was a whole community, fans, producers, other musicians
Yeah.
who rallied around them during that difficult time.
You're right. Phil Walden, the band's manager, was instrumental in keeping them going. He believed in their music and was determined to see them succeed even after such a tragic loss. And Jerry Wexler, the producer who had championed them from the beginning, continued to offer his guidance and support.
It really speaks to the power of their music and the impact Duane had, not just on the band, but on the people around them.
Absolutely. And, speaking of impact, it's important to remember that the Allman Brothers Band were more than just musicians. They represented something bigger, something that challenged the social and cultural norms of the time. Remember, this was the South in the late 60s, a time of immense change and upheaval.
They were pushing boundaries in a lot of ways, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
They had long hair, embraced counterculture values,
Yeah.
and had an integrated lineup, which was still pretty rare in the South back then.
They faced prejudice and hostility, especially when touring through the South.
I see.
There were incidents where they were harassed and threatened simply because Jimo, their drummer, was black.
That's just heartbreaking.
It is.
But through it all, they stood together, united by their love for music and their belief in each other.
And that shared experience, that sense of community, is reflected in their music.
Right.
It's raw, honest, full of emotion, and it speaks to something universal, something that transcends race, social status, or even musical taste.
There's that soul, that connection that makes their music so timeless and enduring. So, despite the tragedy of Duane's death,
Yeah.
the Allman Brothers Band carried on releasing albums that would become classics like Eat a Peach and Brothers and Sisters, and continuing to tour for decades. It's amazing, isn't it? Even after losing Duane, they went on to achieve incredible success. But it makes you wonder, would they have reached those same heights if he hadn't been taken from us so soon?
It's a question that's been debated by music fans for decades.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible to say for sure.
Yeah.
Duane was undeniably the driving force behind the band's initial sound.
Right.
He had this incredible talent for recognizing and nurturing talent, pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
and blending genres in a way that was both innovative and deeply rooted in tradition.
It's like he could see the potential in others.
Yes.
The possibilities that existed when different musical influences collided. Even before the Allman Brothers, he was already experimenting and pushing the limits of what was possible in the studio.
You're right. Think about his time in Muscle Shoals. He wasn't content to just be a session musician playing the notes on the page.
Right.
He was constantly searching for new sounds, new ways to express himself through music. He was a catalyst for creativity, pushing those around him to explore new sonic territory.
His impact went far beyond his own band.
Yeah.
We can't forget about his contribution to Eric Clapton's Layla and other assorted love songs.
Oh, yeah.
That album is a masterpiece.
Such a great album.
And Duane's slide guitar work is all over it.
His slide guitar on Layla is just iconic.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear the passion, the raw emotion in every note he pushed Clapton to new heights. And their collaboration resulted in one of the most memorable guitar duos in rock history.
So even in his short life, Duane Allman left an indelible mark on music.
Absolutely.
But getting back to the Allman Brothers Band, how did they evolve musically after his death? Did they manage to maintain that innovative spirit?
Absolutely. While Duane was undoubtedly the architect of their initial sound, the other members were incredibly talented musicians in their own right.
Right.
They weren't just following his lead.
Yeah.
They were active participants in the creative process.
So they weren't just a backing band for Duane's genius.
Exactly.
They were a true collaborative unit.
Exactly. After his death, they had to find their own way, their own voice.
Right.
Dickie Betts stepped up, taking on a more prominent role as a songwriter and musical director. The band started to incorporate more country and folk influences into their music, while still retaining that core Southern rock sound that Duane had helped establish.
That makes a lot of sense. They stayed true to their roots, but they also allowed themselves to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
And it worked. They continued to produce incredible music throughout the 1970s and beyond.
They went through numerous lineup changes, faced personal struggles, and navigated the ever-changing landscape of the music industry.
Yeah.
But through it all, they never lost sight of that core musical vision. A blend of blues, rock, jazz, and a healthy dose of improvisation.
And they did it all while maintaining that incredible connection with their fans.
Whoa, for sure.
Their shows weren't just concerts.
No.
They were communal experiences.
That's right. The Allman Brothers Band cultivated a sense of community of belonging that extended far beyond the music itself.
Yeah.
And that's something that Duane understood instinctively. He knew how to connect with an audience, how to create a shared experience that was both powerful and transformative.
So while we'll never know for sure what the Allman Brothers Band would have become if Duane had lived, it's clear that he left behind a legacy that extended far beyond his brief time with the band.
Definitely.
He ignited a musical fire that continued to burn brightly for decades, inspiring countless musicians and touching the lives of millions of fans.
He was a visionary, a pioneer, a true innovator who helped shape the sound of Southern rock and left an indelible mark on music history.
Yeah.
His story is a testament to the power of passion, creativity, and the enduring spirit of rock and roll.
Well said. And you know what, folks? That's the beauty of music. It transcends time, it connects us across generations. So the next time you hear those opening notes of Whipping Post or that soaring slide guitar on Ramblin' Man, remember Duane Allman, the man who helped shape the sound of a generation and whose music continues to inspire us today. Thanks for tuning in.